Hey, welcome to Full Circle. I'm Anderson Cooper. Thanks for joining us here on Facebook. We're coming to you as we do every day from our New York City newsroom. We got a lot to get to tonight, and always we want to hear from you. Weigh in with your thoughts in the comment section. Now, if you ever want to quiet those thoughts, just sweep right. Tonight, blast off. Why 2 rockets launched toward the heavens today. You voted on the 5 things you most want to know about, and we got into them, digging in for you. These rockets were just one of the 5. Plus, superstar Demi Lovato is awake and recovering after an apparent overdose. Dr. Drew joins me here in the newsroom to answer your questions on addiction for the Full Circle interview. And later tonight's 180, your chance to ask me some questions. Tonight's topic: when the guy or gal next door becomes the story. I report on plenty of folks who are plucked from obscurity and put squarely into the spotlight. I'll explain the story that we're referencing later. Write your questions in the comments and I'll get to as many as I can. Also, my question for you: if you could book a ticket to space, would you? Vote now, either blast off or grounded. If you're watching live on your phone or tablet, you should see your choices on the bottom half of the screen. Vote away, then swipe down to clear it. And while you're at it, tag a friend. You might be surprised with this one. I want to know what they think as well. We'll get you final results of what everyone thinks before the end of the program. We're going to start with the first thing first. One of the top trending stories on Facebook right now. Tonight, it's all about a court case that could open up the president's finances to the kind of scrutiny he might not be so comfortable with. It centers on his Washington hotel and whether it amounts to a source of gifts or payments from other governments. The word for it is emoluments. Now, the Constitution forbids a president from accepting them, and today a federal judge in Maryland allowed a case to proceed that would determine whether the president violated that clause. Next step now, discovery, which could include the president or the Trump organization's tax returns. That would be interesting. Now, for the one thing you need to know, the most important story of the day, the one thing we don't want you to miss, that proposed follow-up meeting in Washington between President Trump and Russia's President Vladimir Putin, announced last week by the White House, to the astonishment of even some senior administration officials. Well, now that won't happen until early next year. The president's national security advisor, John Bolton, framed the delay as necessary because the White House wanted to wait until, in Bolton's words, the Russia witch hunt is over. This is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo just wrapped up testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and took a pounding even from some Republicans. Several lawmakers were upset at the lack of concrete details on the Helsinki summit that took place 9 days ago. Here's the committee chairman, Republican Senator Bob Corker.
We saw an American president who appeared submissive and deferential. We've heard that some agreements were reached, but as of yet have little idea what those might be.
We don't know what went on behind closed doors still. The committee's ranking Democrat, Senator Bob Menendez, engaged in a sometimes feisty, I guess you could say, back and forth about what happened in Helsinki. Listen.
I just asked you a simple question. You can't eat up my 7 minutes, Mr. Secretary. Did he tell you whether or not what happened in those 2 hours?
Yes, Senator. The predicate of your question implied some notion that there was something improper about having a one-on-one meeting. I completely disagree with the premise of your question.
I didn't ask.
Well, you get the idea. Secretary Pompeo faced tough questions from Democrats and even from a couple of Republicans, as I said. I want to make a turn now into the Full Circle interview. Singer Demi Lovato is awake and with family at a Los Angeles hospital. On Tuesday, a source close to the family told CNN she was hospitalized after an apparent drug overdose. Lovato turns 26 next month. She struggled with mental health issues, drug and alcohol abuse since her teens. In March, she said she was celebrating 6 years of sobriety. But last month, she released a song with lyrics that revealed she had relapsed. The longtime advocate for mental health has inspired a trending hashtag on Twitter, How Demi Helped Me. Fans are offering words of support and stories of survival inspired by Lovato's honesty on her ongoing struggle, the same way she has been there for them. Here are some of them. Quote, I got help for the first time when I was 15 after Demi shared her story. I saw so much of myself in it. She's been next to me when no one else was, another person said. She's still my longest friend. Joining me now is Dr. Drew Pinsky, an addiction expert and host of Dr. Drew Midday Live on KABC Radio in Los Angeles. First of all, what was your reaction when you heard what had happened to Lovato?
Well, there was a lot of misinformation at the beginning. I first heard everyone heard heroin. I thought, no way. It just didn't fit with her syndrome. We heard that she was administered Narcan, which apparently her friends administered to her. And when the fire department arrived, she still hadn't awakened, which suggests that she didn't respond to the Narcan, which sort of takes opiates off the table here.
Narcan is something that if you give somebody who's overdosed, it can bring them out.
blocks the opiates, and they're out of your system essentially, or their effect is out of your system.
And when you talk about opiates,
painkillers, and heroin, of course, is an opiate too. But heroin, you deteriorate so rapidly, and she just had none of those features. Then I thought, how sad. I mean, this is a lovely woman. She's a wonderful woman, and I thought, boy, she's going to feel a lot of shame and guilt and self-loathing around this relapse. But
which so many people who do relapse.
Of course, it's part of the right, and it's part of the condition. I always feel when they start feeling guilty and ashamed, what disaster that is, because there's no reason for it. It's just her condition. It's really the way people stigmatize the illness that they feel they should be responsible for it, mental illness particularly. But look, illnesses above the brain are no different than above the neck are no different than illnesses below the neck. They're just, it's a brain disorder. It has a treatment. It's a chronic illness. It's marked by relapses. When people relapse, they need to get it back together again, assemble a treatment team, get back into 12-step organizations, and just get going again.
And I mean, she said, had 6 years of sobriety, which is a huge accomplishment.
Wonderful.
And then to relapse. I mean, how common is a relapse? I mean, I have friends who have relapsed multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even look at sometimes as relapse, because what people don't understand, it usually takes multiple treatments and multiple years just to attain 1 year of sobriety, like 5 years, 4 treatments on average.
Is that right? Really?
On average. It's not like you go through the treatment and you're magically well. Plus, Demi Lovato.
So you're saying it could take 4 or 5
treatments.
Oh,
average, on average, before you get a year of sobriety. And then if you get multiple years of sobriety and you have a relapse, you just reassess, get it back together, reassemble your team. In her case, she of course has bipolar disorder, she has eating disorder, she has some self-harm and cutting, all of which she's been very public about. And that confounds the syndrome a bit. It makes it more difficult, more treacherous. All those things have to be treated as well. This suggests there may be some trauma issues that need management. So again, she's a complicated case, and she's entitled to having a little bit of, need for reassessment. Like if she were a diabetic and a brittle diabetic, she needed reassessment. We wouldn't even blink an eye at that, but with mental illness, we do.
I mean, it's interesting to hear from some, some people online who really feel like she has helped them because she's been so honest.
She has, and I've seen it personally. And that's why it sort of breaks my heart to think of her being ashamed and guilty at this stage. She will be, again, an inspiration for other people. Anybody struggling with mental illness will be inspired by Demi Lovato soon. And this relapse will be part of how she informs and helps other people.
One of the things I love about this Facebook program is we get to have viewers ask questions to our guests, so I don't have to come up with all the questions. Karen asks, are young stars more likely to use drugs than the average teenager or young adult, or do we just hear more about the stars because they're on a public stage, and does an addict truly recover?
So 2 questions. I don't ever look at celebrities as different than anybody else. They just happen to be on a public stage, as this question suggests. So you hear more about it. Now, they have more consequences because they don't have an employer or a family member with leverage over them. They can sometimes progress to the point that things get pretty bad for celebrities. Yeah, but they don't get it necessarily anymore than everybody else. Though I did do some studies that suggest that people that seek celebrity or that seek performing tend to have more liabilities that set them up for things like
there's something
addiction.
About
seeking
the spotlight
yes.
that represents some sort of
a liability.
Right, a liability.
And do people ever recover? Yes, they recover, but they're never cured, right? It's a chronic illness, but people live with it and be in a fully thriving, flourishing existence. In fact, one of the reasons I got involved in treatment of addiction was I saw people go from young people, healthy people who were dying of addiction, become these amazing human beings, and I just wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to see how that works.
Someone who's listening right now who's struggling with addiction, what's the word of advice for?
Word of advice is go to your meeting, raise your hand, and say I need help. Just go online, have them pick you up, go to a 12-step.
There's help out there.
Mutual aid society has help everywhere around every corner, and it's free. It's free. That's the thing that drives me insane, that we don't get further behind these free services. That a new Cochrane study is about to be released that shows they are as beneficial or better than professionally managed care. So it is evidence-based. So please, it's free. We could save millions of dollars of healthcare expense and help people. So just go to a meeting, raise your hand, ask for help.
Dr. Drew, thanks. It's good to talk to you. Appreciate it.
it.
Now on to the 5 things you want to know. You voted on your top 5 stories on this page, and we spent the day digging into them. Here are your top 5. Coming in at number 5, we love a good rocket launch, but how about 2 on the same day? That's right, this morning, European company Ariane Space launched its Ariane 5 rocket for its 99th flight. It was carrying 4 satellites for Galileo, Europe's global navigation system, which is some incredible footage there. Also this morning, there was this. Rival SpaceX launched their own rocket, the Falcon 9. It was carrying 10 satellites for a communications company. Now, for science's sake, I think we need to see those rocket launches at the same time. or just because I really like to watch rocket launches. It's incredibly cool. We want to know what you think, so don't forget to vote. SpaceX and other launch companies have pledged to make space tourism a reality. If you could climb aboard, would you blast off or would you want to stay grounded? We'll let you know the results at the end of the show. Right now, 50-50. Interesting. I would think more people would want to go into space, but we'll see. Let's see what at the end of the broadcast. At number 4 today, new details on the devastating wildfires in Greece. The pictures out of Greece, just horrific. Fires burning so hot, cars are melting, molten aluminum dots. The roads of one village, along with car tires, turn into liquid rubber. Death toll so far has reached 81 people. It's expected to rise as firefighters and members of the armed forces are still searching for victims. According to Greece's Civil Protection Agency, almost 190 people have been injured, including 23 kids. The mayor of one of the hardest hit villages said that as he and his family fled, they saw more than 300 burned cars and a lot of homes just left in ruins. He added, quote, "There's no such settlement anymore." Government officials have ordered an investigation into the cause of the fires and have requested drones from the U.S. to detect any, what they say is suspicious activity. At number 3 today, a college student who took a stand literally and stopped the deportation of an Afghan man from Sweden. It happened at Gothenburg Airport on a plane bound for Istanbul. It was streamed on Facebook Live. Elin Earson refused to sit down until the man was taken off the plane. Take a look.
That there's a family outside at the airport that thought that their brother and son was going to get deported today, but there is another man who's 52 years old that is going to get deported to Afghanistan, where he will most likely get killed. So I'm at the airport, and the people working here were trying to take away my phone, and the people who have been trying to deportate the old man have actually pushed me and tried to forcibly move me. And what I'm all saying is that I'm not going to sit down until this person is off the plane. Because
well, as Earson said, she fears the man will likely get killed if he's sent back to Afghanistan. A police spokesman confirmed to CNN that it was a forced deportation and added it's unclear when he will be deported. Earson's post has been watched more than 3 million times so far. That brings me back to our 180 topic, becoming famous overnight. I've done plenty of stories on folks like Elin who go from unknown to super well-known all of a sudden. Ask me questions about that in the comments. I'll answer them coming up in just a few minutes. Now, your number 2 story today, an amazing discovery on Mars by Italian researchers. This is incredible. Ground-penetrating radar on the Mars Express spacecraft has detected an actual lake on the red planet. It stretches about 12.5 miles across. It looks similar to lakes found under the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets here on Earth. I mean, this is incredibly exciting. The radar showed a large streak of blue, which helped researchers come to their findings. Quote, "We interpret this feature as a stable body of liquid water on Mars." Now, given its location below the polar ice cap, it's believed the water temperature is below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but researchers believe the salts found on Mars could help the lake to remain liquid. There's been some suggestions about water on the red planet, but this is the first time any evidence has actually been potentially discovered. Now, if it turns out to be true, human exploration could become closer than you'd think. And now for the number 1 thing you want to know more about today. In the fight against Alzheimer's disease, the most common cause of dementia, researchers have started to use precision medicine. It's already often used to treat breast and colon cancer. Scientists focus on a patient's genetic profile, meaning that once they're able to identify the genes that cause the disease, they may be able to determine the most effective treatment. It's really exciting stuff. Other researchers are focused on immunotherapy. It's often associated with treating skin, lung, kidney, and bladder cancers. That's when scientists harness the body's own immune system to help fight imbalances that cause the disease. And just today, at an Alzheimer's conference in Chicago, it was announced there's a new experimental drug able to reduce both the plaques in the brains of patients and slow the progression of dementia. Doctors warn, though, of course, more research is needed. So those are the 5 stories you most wanted to know about today. I hope yours made it, but if it didn't, be sure to vote tomorrow afternoon on our Facebook page. Time for the 180. You may have heard me say this before, but one of the things I value about this job is getting to connect with people and getting to do that, some of that right here with you on this program. It's also just in the course of reporting, I meet so many people who aren't famous, who aren't politicians, whose lives are changed when they become part of the news, but you know, for better or worse. It's a responsibility I take very seriously, telling their story and telling it accurately, particularly because sometimes the person I'm talking to wasn't really asking to be put in the spotlight in the first place, or they've had their voice taken away, and one of the jobs of a reporter is to give them a voice, give them a platform. So here are some of your questions tonight. Evangelos wants to know, have you ever had an interview or had to interview a family member as part of a story? I mean, all the time. A family member of mine as part of a story? I guess that's the question. I did a documentary about my mom, and that's you can watch it. It's on HBO Go now. It was broadcast on HBO, and that was a really interesting experience to actually sit down and extensively interview my mom. It was in conjunction with a book we did called The Rainbow Comes and Goes, where it was basically just kind of learning a lot about my mom's life that I didn't really know, and it was a way really to encourage other people to do the same thing with their parents, particularly with an aging parent or a grandparent, before it's too late. Linda asks, when a not famous person gets placed in the spotlight, where does a reporter draw the line for privacy and respect for the person and or the family? How is that decided and by whom? That is a really great question. And I got to say, that's something we wrestle with. We wrestle with it in the newsroom, like here behind me. We wrestle with it in the field. I believe it's, as important to be a decent human being as it is to be a decent and fair reporter. And so I never want to put somebody in a position where they are suddenly thrust onto the world stage against their wishes, unless obviously that person has done something wrong or done something that sort of requires the report. So I'm a big believer in getting to know somebody before you start the camera rolling, and just trying to explain what you're interested in talking to them about, and what the story is going to be, and make sure that they're comfortable and understand kind of the ripple effects of suddenly appearing on television can have. Samantha wants to know, how does your interview style change when talking to regular people, or is it the same no matter who you're interviewing? It really depends. I wouldn't say that it's a difference between talking to regular people and celebrities. I would say it's more, or politicians, I'd say it's more about the context of the interview. Is it somebody who's just, Tia Coleman we had on just the other day, who'd lost 9 members of her family in that duck boat sinking off Branson, Missouri. Doing an interview like that is, it's an extremely sensitive thing. She's at the lowest point in her life. She's lost 9 members of her family, and you never want to ask a stupid question to somebody who's moving through grief, who's experiencing grief. You want to be sensitive, and you want to, at least for me, it's really about trying to understand who the family members were, so they're not just some news story, not just a statistic. It's to let you know the loss that Tia is feeling, and kind of put faces and names to the story. Thanks very much for your questions. Time now for the goods. One last story that hopefully leaves you feeling pretty good. This one is all about politics, but not politics as usual. A small village in northwestern Michigan has elected a new mayor, and her name is Sweet Tart. She now governs the unincorporated village of Omena, Michigan, population of about 300. The Detroit Free Press says the Omena Historical Society decided about 10 years ago to hold elections for village council, and the candidates are all animals who live there. The election is a fundraiser for the Historical Society, $1 per vote. The first vice mayor, by the way, is a dog named Diablo. He's a stay-at-home dad, and his favorite food is food, I'm told. The second vice mayor is Pumpkin, who, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Oh my gosh, that is a cute dog, who's working on advanced potty training and loves to attack the vacuum, but frankly, who doesn't? And the press secretary is a goat named Harley. Wow, that's a press secretary. Harley likes peanuts, and whose pet peeve is peanut shells with only one nut. I mean, that is everybody's pet peeve, isn't it? All that effort for just one nut. There's a joke in there somewhere. Mayor Sweet Tart and the rest of the village council will remain in office for 3 years. I think we're going to be taken off the air. That's almost it for today, except for I asked you a question, so let's look at your answers. If you could board a rocket to the moon, would you? 49% of you are all on board, ready for blast off. 51% of you could not be dragged, not even kicking and screaming. You're happy to stay grounded. I'm surprised by that. I would totally go for the blast off, depending on how long it took and how sick you get. I also want to take a look at how you reacted to the show in today's news, if only because it's been so rewarding every day to see you expressing your love. Looks like overall your strongest emotion was, love again. That's very nice. Nice. We don't have an emoji of somebody throwing up. That would be not good if that was everybody's emotion. That does it for the show. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back more soon. Maybe make it easy on yourself. Click over to our show page. Give us a follow. I hope you'll join in again tomorrow on our page here with the things you want to know. We'll be back live at 6:25 p.m. Eastern every weekday night. Till then, I hope you tune in to AC 360 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time every weekday night on CNN. Tonight, the secret audio of a conversation between then candidate Trump and his then personal attorney, Michael Cohen, how that tape completely contradicts what Team Trump has been saying all along about what he knew and when he knew it. How about that? We're keeping him honest, as always. I'll see you then.